Great job. B, I probably have
public
done
speaking
that.
tip number 1.
Do that.
A, number 2.
Hey everyone, it's Presley at actoutgames.com here, and today we're doing a Presley's perspective. This is a little bit of a weird one because we've actually both researched the topic a little bit.
We've started moving into that. I think as you've gotten older, we've started having you do a little bit of digging in, and then we talk more about it. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's kind of a new pattern.
Yeah.
There'll be less super cold conversations. Yeah.
Yes.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about homelessness.
We are.
Ever since, do you want to do this or should I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ever since we moved to Los Angeles, we've noticed that the homeless population here is a lot bigger than it is in Colorado.
That's true.
Obviously.
Yep.
And so we've been thinking about it, and it's been on our minds recently, and we decided we wanted to do a conversation with you guys about it.
And this actually may be the first of a series of conversations about this topic,
Okay.
because this is something that's really been kind of nagging at me a little bit, and we've talked about it a couple of times.
Yes.
And so, like, when I was in Austin for college, there were a lot of homeless people there, and I kind of actually spent a lot of time with them, kind of hung out with them a little bit. And so I spent some time with those guys. Hawaii has a really large homeless population similar to California, and there's lots of kind of tent cities and different strategies for dealing with it. And so I think today I wanted to talk a little bit about like really big picture questions about homelessness,
Okay.
and less, I don't know, like the starfish approach. Well, I think we'll dig into a little bit later. You know the starfish story, like the kid throwing starfishes in the ocean?
No.
Have you not heard that?
No.
Like there's a guy that goes out, I'm just super condensed version. This guy goes out to the beach, and there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of starfish have washed up on the beach. Washed. I sound like Poppy. Have washed up on the beach. And there's a kid walking down the beach, and every few steps he's picking up a starfish and chunking it back in the ocean. And so the guy goes and asks him, "What are you doing?" And the kid's like, "I'm saving the starfish." And the guy's like, "There's like 10,000 starfish on this beach. You're not saving the starfish." And so he picks up a starfish and he goes, "I'm saving this one," and chunks it back in the ocean, right? And so a lot of times when you're talking about homelessness and what to do about homelessness, you're talking about the starfish approach. Like, how do you save that one guy? Like, case by case, one person at a time. You're welcoming this person into a shelter.
Yes.
You're giving this person money on the street. You're giving this person Section 8 housing to try and get in, right? And so there's the other approach that's bigger, that's like, how do you keep all the starfish from washing up on the beach? Like, do you build like a breakwater? Do you do something that keeps that from happening instead of saving one at a time? It's a fairly apt analogy for how people attack homelessness, right?
Yes.
And so I used to, like, starfish approach, I kept money in my wallet that was specifically for people that were asking me for money. And so when I ran out of that money until the next payday, I would be like, "I'm sorry, people beat you to it." I used to almost always give away like my take-home food. Like if we went to a restaurant and ate, and packaged up what was left over to take home. If somebody asked me for change or something on the way back to the car, on the way back home, I would give them that food. Sometimes I would even, if it was like a burger joint or something, I would buy an extra burger and fries and have it in a bag and give it to somebody on the way home. And so I used to be very sort of active in the starfish approach.
Yes.
And I want to get back into doing more of those things. And I've started doing more of those things back here in LA, because LA has a real homelessness problem, right?
Yes.
And well, as we talk about more, I think we'll see that it is kind of structural, the way LA has decided to address the problem from a government standpoint versus the way like New York has tried to solve the problem. They're very different approaches that they've taken, and that has led to some of the situation that we're in now. But all of that said, I really want to talk a little bit more about, for me, one of the things my mind goes to first is the reasons that people don't like really think about helping the homeless. Or people think that you shouldn't help the homeless, let's say.
Yes.
Did you come across any of that while you were doing your research?
Yes, and I've come across a lot of it in my day-to-day life.
Okay.
So there's a couple main reasons, and the first one is that when people are homeless or asking for donations to help the homeless, people don't like to think about homeless people.
Yeah.
They don't like to think about this problem,
Right.
even though it's very apparent and it's there.
Sure.
And so they just tune them out and they ignore them.
I think that's one for sure.
So that's a part of it. When there's someone begging for money, people tune it out.
Yep.
And the second thing, which is just really weird to me, is that people think that homeless people are homeless because they're lazy or drug addicts.
Yep.
And what I want to get clear, and one of the big points I want to make in this video, is that, first of all, only like 17% of homeless people are in any way
Yeah, I want to be real careful about
mentally.
stats right now, because I don't think we've done a ton of the research on it, and I think it's, number one, it's hard to do that kind of research, and so I want to look and see how the methodology behind some of the stats. And I know that it's very different from families. Like, homeless families have a much lower incidence of like drug abuse and mental illness than homeless singles, and there are more homeless families than homeless singles, and so as you do the stats, it kind of comes out. But I'm going to stay away from big numbers.
No stats. But like not, I think it was more than I think it was like 7 instead of 17, but whatever.
I think like a third, like a third of people that are in families maybe have a mental illness or drug addiction problem. You kind of combine them together, but we'll get more into the stats.
Unrelated. Not a lot of homeless people are drug addicts. And not a lot of, but even if they are, that person still deserves a home.
That's the bigger point. Like, the bigger point is it doesn't necessarily really matter how they got to be there. They deserve help as human beings, right?
Yes.
And so it is, if you go back to the starfish thing, it would be like if the guy talking to the kid was like, I don't know, like all these starfish chose to do whatever led them to being washed up on the beach, so you should just let them die. Like, it's their fault they're on the beach, right? Or on the other side, well, that starfish crawled back into the ocean on his own, and so if this one doesn't want to do that himself, you should just leave him alone and let him die, right? If he wants to go back in the beach, he could crawl back in the ocean if he wanted to, because that guy did it, right? And so if you start looking at it, like, those are similar to the arguments that people give about homelessness.
Yeah, because you see a lot of this, and like one of the first things that happened when I was Googling is I saw an article like homeless man with great singing voice is saved from the streets. And that's great. I'm so proud of that guy. But they should not be the, like, you should not be saved because you're homeless just because you have talent.
You also have to take into account that the people that are like panhandling, so the people that are asking you for money on the street, that's a really small percentage of the homeless population. Like, a lot of people are in shelters or in different programs or living like here they're RVs. Like, people have these RVs all over the place that they live in, or people living in their cars, and people who aren't comfortable, who don't want to be out there asking people for money on the street. So the people you encounter day to day that are asking you for money on the street aren't necessarily representative of the homeless population. So yeah, you get a lot of like the person is there by choice because they're lazy or they're drug addicts, or I don't want to give money to the panhandlers because they'll use it for drugs. And this goes back also to the like those blessing bags like we made, right? A lot of people are kind of against those because part of the message that you're putting together when you do that, rather than giving the money, it's a way to not give the money, right? Is that, oh, if I give him money, he's going to spend it on alcohol or drugs, and so he can't be trusted to have money, and so I need to make decisions for him about what he should and shouldn't buy. Like, I feel like he should have some toothpaste, and maybe he wouldn't buy toothpaste for himself, and so I'm just going to give him toothpaste instead of giving him money and letting him decide what he needs. Like, it all sort of falls into the mentality of these people are there by choice, or, you know, they're addicts and they can't do any better, and so if you give them money, you're just feeding their addiction, you're doing these things. And so I think that the big topic I wanted to touch on today, like all of that sets the table for I think what I wanted to talk about today and just get through as we can, which is fairness. And so I think fundamentally what people have issue with when you're talking about helping the homeless specifically is an idea of fairness, right? And so there are government programs that provide housing and food and things like that for people who are homeless. And a lot of people say, look, I work really hard and my wife works really hard and we barely make ends meet and we pay our rent and we put food on the table for our kids, working 40 hours a week each and doing these kinds of things, and I don't get government assistance to pay for my housing or pay for my food. So why should someone else, why is it fair that someone else who I think should be working or should be doing these kinds of things gets free housing and free food? That's not fair. And if someone wanted to take advantage of it and just be homeless and not work or do drugs or do whatever, like if they wanted to make a conscious decision, not that everyone who's out there does that, but if someone wanted to make a decision to just rely on the government to give them free room and board, then how is that fair in the world?
Go
ahead.
Okay, so let's say with that, because this is one of the things I hear a lot. Let's say that maybe 0.1. This is like I have to use stats to make it make sense.
Some small number.
A very small number of homeless people are doing that for the free stuff.
Right.
A, there's probably a reason they're doing that for free stuff. B, you're throwing out the other 99.9% of people that actually need it.
That's perfect, Presley. So that's exactly kind of where I wanted to go with part of the conversation, was like there's the 100-man thing. We talk about that in criminal law, right? So the criminal justice system ideally is geared towards not letting innocent people go to jail. So you'll let 100 guilty people go free before one innocent person goes to jail. So this system is tilted towards keeping the innocent out of jail, even at the expense that sometimes the guilty get away with it, because the system's geared toward making it hard to put people in jail, right? I think we have to have the same kind of mentality here with the homeless. Like, even like for every one person that's milking the system and doesn't really deserve the benefits that they're getting, there's 100 people that do and are getting it. And people seem to be leaning the other way and saying, well, those 100 people that actually deserve it, I'm not going to give them the benefit because I don't want that one guy who's milking the system to get the benefit.
Yes.
Like, I'm so mad at that person who doesn't deserve this benefit that I'm going to deny 100 people who do deserve it from getting it. And I think that's just fundamentally the wrong mentality, like the wrong way to look at it, right?
And like, if you say are getting food on the table for your children and are working jobs and you are alive, and you have like a house and stuff,
right?
I've actually heard from a lot of people that, first of all, I've heard them say, well, those people could do this too. And and one of the things I wanted to talk about is a lot of homeless people are actually working more than one job and trying their
Interestingly enough, and it's even more than ever now. I read like 30% in some cities, like in New York, maybe 30% of the homeless population works. Again, I don't want to use stats. I don't know that that's a good stat, but that there's a big percentage of people that are working but still can't afford rent in very high rent areas like Los Angeles and New York, because like there's enough people that want to move here and have enough money that they're tearing down like low-income housing and single-person residence, like hotels where people used to live a long time, or like a studio apartment that used to be inexpensive to live in. They're tearing those buildings down and building bigger apartments because people will come here and live in those and pay for those, and so you can make money off of it. And so that now there are far fewer low-income housing opportunities in a place because that's not where people can make their money, right? And so again, this goes back to a conversation that you and I have a lot, which is, I do not feel like the things like on the bottom of Maslow's pyramid, right? So shelter and food and healthcare, like those kinds of things to me just do not feel like they should fundamentally be capitalistic enterprises.
Yes.
That like the more money you have, the better healthcare you get. Doesn't seem like a good idea to me, right? And if you have to have enough money to have a place to live. Or food to eat, like that sounds like a terrible idea to me.
Right?
Like it seems like there should be like a baseline, and there's this ideas that are tossed around all the time about like a minimum income, minimum basic income, that the government basically pays everyone enough for room and board, and so that's sort of taken care of. And then whatever you want to do above and beyond that, if you want to live in a better place, if you want to eat better food, if you want to do other things, you can excel beyond that. But there's a safety net that just captures everybody. And if people choose to take advantage of that and live at that basic level, like sustenance level, then so be it. Like that, people will live at that and people will take advantage of that. But people also will not fall through the cracks. People who are mentally ill or addicted, substance abuse problems or things like that would be captured by a solution like that.
Because those are human people too.
That's right.
Also,
No. It goes back to like there's a whole thing about deinstitutionalization, which is a really cool word. So a long time ago, and actually not all that long ago, but a while back, people who were mentally ill used to be in institutions largely. So like Hurley in Lost, right?
Wow.
People spend, we can't do a video without talking about Lost. People spent time in institutions, but then like these videos came out about these abusive situations in institutions. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like all these horrible things happened. And so policy shifted against institutionalization. And so they started sending people out on the streets, right? And so, hey, here's some meds, go make it on your own, because we don't take responsibility for institutionalizing people anymore. And so there's more of those people on the streets now than there used to be.
But you know what we're doing?
What are we doing?
We're institutionalizing homeless people.
We are.
And I was watching this and this is like, we're talking specifically sort of here about LA stuff, because that's what we have experience with. But I actually watched this really interesting YouTube documentary about Boise.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a location I never really thought about. And there's this guy who's been making homeless shelters all over the world.
Oh, nice.
Actually. And they're actually like bare minimum.
Right.
Like sleeping on mats. Level
Yeah.
Stuff.
I sort of have this idea of the same thing, and I need to do more research about So I'd love to watch that documentary, actually.
I'll send it to you.
Send it to me, because I'd like to check that out.
It wasn't just about, it was not about him.
Like this baseline of sustenance, and then you can go beyond that. But that's a baseline that's available to everybody. Because I also think, like, if you were homeless and you really wanted a warm place to sleep and free meals and stuff like that, you could go commit a crime and go to jail.
Good point.
So, like, we offer free room and board to people who are willing to commit crimes, but we're not willing to offer free room and board to people who are trying to, like, make ends meet. Like, that's also something that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So really, this is more us, I think. We're starting a conversation. We're going to dig more into this. We're going to find out how we can help more, both from a both from a starfish method and from a broader, like, engaging in the conversation and trying to figure out how we can shift people's mindset around these kinds of things. Please.
Are we ending the conversation?
No, we're about to wrap up.
Okay,
because I don't want this to be another 30-minute video of us rambling.
All right, so what I wanted to say is I read an article during my research that to build enough, like, homeless shelters to keep basically everyone off the streets and alive, it would take $20 billion, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Which is, I've been doing a lot of A-B things. Okay. Just a little less than the amount of money spent on Christmas decorations in the United States.
Right.
And B, I calculated it, and it's like roughly 25% of the amount of money that Jeff Bezos has.
Right. Yeah.
So the fact that a human being has enough to do that, and the fact,
but it's also less than we spend on solutions currently for homeless people. Like, actually putting people in houses would cost less than most of what we currently do from the stuff that I've read.
Just put them
so we
in
need to learn more. And here, I'll give you a tip. You should always say A, this, and number 2, that. Just because it's funny.
Great job. I probably have
public
done
speaking tip number 1.
Do that.
A, number 2. Really, I wanted to start the conversation with you guys as well. So I would love to hear what you guys think. What do you think about the current homelessness problem? What do you think are the right solutions to the homelessness problem? What do you do when somebody walks up to you on the street and asks you if you have any money? Right. Like, what do you say?
And I do want to say really quickly also, like, if you are in, because this is a problem that actually has been coming up a lot recently. If you're in a bad situation and you don't have money to give to these people, that's okay.
Oh, of course.
But if you have the money, then please.
Was that you?
It was you.
Oh, do I have my phone on me?
Yes.
Sorry.
Then please go ahead and use some of that to help these people.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear what you guys think. Resources, like Presley saw that documentary. If you have other videos or docs we can watch to learn more about the problem, or people who are really doing something about it that we should try and engage with. Maybe Presley can interview some people that are doing something about it. Maybe Presley could interview some people that are living through some hard times.
Yes.
We could have some conversations and kind of find out. Like, I think this is a cause that I'm really starting to believe a lot more in, and would like for us to get in.
Not in the cause of homelessness, in the cause of
doing something about it. Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to engage there and start doing something and using the tiny little platform that we have and access to people that we can talk to do some things to try and do something about it. Yeah.
Oh, never mind. I was going to say something really interesting about this documentary I saw. The documentary was about how some places are making, like, it illegal to sleep outside and stuff like that to try and arrest people for being homeless. And it was about that. And there's this really fascinating woman, I don't remember her name.
We'll put a link to the doc.
Yeah, she was directly affected. She was, like, ticketed for sleeping outside.
Right.
And she is suing the state.
Well, there's an interesting, like, so just the last thing that I'll end with here, like, in the little bit of research that I've been doing getting ready for this video, New York has passed a law that says that everyone has a fundamental right to shelter.
Yes.
And so they have to offer a roof over the head of everyone who's in New York that needs one. Whereas LA County has sort of passed a law, maybe in the 70s even, that made it legal to sleep on the sidewalk. Right. And then they kind of said, okay, there you go. Everybody's got a place to sleep. We don't have to provide shelter because we made it legal to sleep on the sidewalk.
You know what? That might actually not be good because it's a sidewalk.
And that's part of how LA started getting in this situation with the big tent cities and the things that have been happening and kind of coming that way. But they have sort of said, okay, well, we did what we needed to do. We made it okay for you to sleep wherever you want to. Yes. We don't have to provide you a shelter. And so, and then there's whole things about, like, not providing, like, if you're going to allow these tent cities to spring up, the government also doesn't allow people to put, like, portable toilets there. Like, even volunteer organizations took these portable toilets and set them up, like, around Skid Row here in LA, and the government took them away. And then just recently, the government finally put some down there. But over years, this has been going back and forth about whether it's this thing about, like, institutionalizing almost, and the government, like, approving it because they're letting these portable toilets stay there. Yeah. But I mean, these people need, like, basic human needs to be met. Need a decency. They need, if you want these people to get jobs, they have to be able to take a shower. They have to be able to do the thing. Like, it's a whole situation. If you want them to have
jobs, they should be able to pass a job interview.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a lot more about this, I think, right? I just wanted to start the conversation. I wanted to start it with you guys and hear what you guys had to think about it, and I wanted you to start doing some research on it. And so I think we're going to kind of loop around this topic for a little while and make this a theme of some of Presley's perspectives and some of the like social outreach that we do for the next little bit, if that's okay with you.
No, it's fine. Let's go ahead and let's do it. We did like something similar to this by accident on gun control, so it's good that we're doing it on purpose.
Right. Cool.
Cool.
All right, get us out of here.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to press the subscribe button to see more videos like this and to see us continue this conversation. Make sure to leave a comment down below your thoughts on our conversation, if you've said anything that we mentioned, that like I mentioned, and why you think or have said that. And make sure to give us your solutions and things that you do to help the homeless on a daily basis.
Awesome.
Bye.
Wow, bye. That was quick. Good grief. All right, later, guys.
Sorry. I already said thank you for watching. I didn't say thank you for watching.